Good morning again, everyone. It's really a special joy to be here with you all, and it's especially nice because Zach and I have been away, and we are going away again, so this is just a really joyful gathering together. We're really happy to be here. So our topic today is, one of those that you just feel really good about, abiding in God. Just one of those nice ones to tune into, and many of you know the reason Zach and I have been away and will go away again is to be with our friend Roy, who is somebody we met about 11 years ago, and he has just had a really profound effect on our lives, and I hope I can talk about him. Anyway, when I was tuning into this topic, abiding in God, what better example do I have in my life than Roy? He just really exemplifies this feeling of somebody who is centered in God, and his whole life is just right out there, and you can see the source of everything as his connection to God. So I wanted to share just a few things that, he's showed us and we've learned from him, if I can talk. So Roy took us down to Baja about 10, 11 years ago for the first time. And we would drive around this area where he lives down there, and he would point out all of these things to us and say, oh, this used to be this, but then this happened and it changed, and just, different things in the landscape. This hotel that was run by gringos and was successful, the Mexicans took it over, ran it into the ground, whatever it was. He would just take us around and show us, and he would always say, kids, nothing is permanent in the Baja. And then he'd say, well, nothing is permanent anywhere. And he said this to us so many times, just over and over. And how can he say this and just be, how can that have so much power, him saying that? And he's totally centered pretty much all the time. You don't see him really lose his center. He's always calm and centered. And he's not attached to the nature of this world. And that's what he was telling us. Nothing is permanent. And we can't be attached, because if we are attached, it's going to go away, and we're going to come into suffering because we had attachment to something that wasn't lasting. Nothing in this world is that way. But what we know and what we can feel is, God is lasting, and that's where we should really be centered. And with Roy, you just feel that. Another, aspect of life that he taught us just by his example. Even though he was oftentimes outwardly teaching us, we would literally sit at his feet on the beach, and he would share just amazing stories with us. But so much by his example did he teach us. And so he really had this spirit of brotherhood and fellowship, just that presence around him always. And so much of what we I'm going to do this, okay? Anyway, we have our veranda here, which is okay, sorry, Shri Yukteswar, I know you're strong there, but so we have our veranda here, which I just have to say is definitely inspired by Roy. He has a very humble veranda. Pretty much anywhere he lives, he's got a humble veranda, and it is the center of his fellowship. And in some ways he has, this outward fellowship of this, congregation in the Baja. They do these services, but the presence of fellowship is just with him all the time. And I remember a few years ago, we were in the Baja with him, and there's, all these different people on the beach with, all their different people stuff. And there was one man who, and they have radios down there, and they all have their little handles on their radios, and what was Peter's? I forget his. Anyway, Roy had given him one, but he didn't like it. Do you remember what his was? Anyway, he had something that was kind of cool, but Roy always called him Peter, Pumpkin Eater. But Peter wasn't really into that, and
Peter's was Baywatch.
Baywatch. I thought that was Tom. I can't remember. Anyway, if Roy gives you a handle, you pretty much have to accept it. So Peter didn't really accept it, but that's okay. That's just the way he was. And he had kind of taken on this role of, he was going to kind of support the caretakers of the beach. So anytime anybody would come, and it's a great service, people would come to camp on the beach, and he would track them down and tell them, this is how it works, this is what you need to pay, and on and on. And Roy had told him that we were coming, and basically, leave the kids alone, I'll deal with the kids. And of course, Peter comes up and tries to take on his role, and he liked this authority role of getting us situated and telling us all the rules. And Roy was a little bit irritated with him, and was just kind of openly expressing just how he wasn't totally pleased with how he had done this. I told him, and so we're there, and he's just, not in a reactive way, but just kind of reflecting and expressing how he felt about it. And then the next time Peter came to the veranda, Roy just embraced him with so much love, and you would have no idea that he had any little irritation with him at all. And really, I don't think he did. And it was just, for me, an amazing thing to see, because here's this kind of pesky man kind of behaving however he wants to, and it didn't change anything at all for how Roy received him. Peter came, and just, you could tell he felt nothing but love from Roy. And he just was totally comfortable and totally loved and embraced. And, so special to see that, and really for all of us to have that spirit of brotherhood and fellowship, and to look beyond these outward things, because, the outward things just don't matter that much. But the love in our hearts that we can cultivate and share with each other, that's where it's at, guys. That's what we need to do. And, that's just, I think with Roy, he told us over and over, God is love. God is love. And that's just what we need to be cultivating. And so often we can get constricted around the heart when we get too involved in what's happening around us and the way we think things should be. But the more we can just open our hearts and just remember that all the time, the more we can just live in that spirit of brotherhood and friendship and fellowship together. So Roy right now has so many people coming to see him. He doesn't have much time left on this earth. And we've been able to spend some time with him in California, in Napa, where he's living. And it's been
Barley.
Oh, he drank it.
Water,
Okay. Anyway, in the reading it says, it gives this analogy of the vine and the fruit, and I am the vine and you are the branches, and if you're branches can stay connected to the vine, then you will bear good fruit. Thanks for bearing with me. I guess Roy has good fruit.
So I'm going to share a little bit also. And yeah, I'm going to steer clear of Roy for a few minutes so that we can talk about something. You know, but one thing that's really important for us to realize is how unimportant the words actually are. And if we can get into our hearts to the feeling of gratitude and love that's always there for us, then that's really what matters, and words just fall away. You know, sometimes I think the best service would be if we all just sat here in our hearts and didn't say a word, and we just all felt that together. And I think at some point we'll be able to do that, but right now we can still have some words. So the words that I wanted to start with actually was, I was going to read a little bit from this talk that Yogananda gave in 1949. And a few weeks ago, Dambara showed up with it at our morning meditation. And when he announced that he was going to read from this, he said, "This fell off my shelf." And I asked him afterwards, "Did that really fall off your shelf?" And he said, "Yes, it did." And I said, "Give it to me." And this talk is absolutely phenomenal. I'm hoping we can have one of the temple people or someone who knows how to use technology transcribe this so we can send it around. But the story basically in the beginning is that Jyotish and Devi shared this with the village in sometime in 1990s. I don't know when exactly, it says somewhere, but this talk Master was giving in 1949, and he tells this story, which I'm going to try to read, about abiding in God. And he says, "I must tell a little incident. I went to the graduation of my nephew. I had to go all the way to Los Angeles, and I said, 'Lord, I've got to see him.' And there were 4,000 students. So I saw one of those men with those square caps. I knew he knew him. A voice said, 'Ask him.' So I asked, and he said he knew him very well, but he's a needle in a haystack now, and he couldn't find him. So I said, 'Oh, why did this happen?' But I knew it was a trick of the Lord's. So somebody was holding me a seat. I sat there. Everybody stood up. I knew that he, with a capital H, would tell me I would get when to get up. Somebody said, 'The people are coming.' Still, I waited. Another person said just about when they were going to end, 'People are coming.' And I got up. I got the answer. The Lord had told me to get up now, and I went. And there was a huge lady standing in front of me. And I said, 'Lord, why did you make her huge? I can't see anybody.' And there was a little lady and a man in front, and I was trying to go. Somebody said, 'You can't do it, it's packed.' Lord said I shouldn't move. So I stayed there, watching this huge, tall thing in front of me with long black hair. So I said, 'All right, I will stay here.' Once I tried to get up on a chair that was very wobbly, and the Lord said, 'You will be down.' So I said, all right, I stand here, patiently standing. And just a little while after that, the man came bolting out, and the Lord said, 'Now move.' I didn't look. I moved, and in 1 minute's time, he was in front of me. I said, 'Hello, Aaron.' And he turned back, and I had taken 2 mangoes, and they said that I shouldn't carry mangoes. But I was right, because I had the mangoes to give him. It goes on from there, but about abiding in God. You know, the other part of the chapter of the last week and week and a half for Hailey and I has been that when we kind of got the phone call about Roy, it was like an instantaneous knowing that we needed to go be with him. And a part of that choice to leave was the implications that it had for everyone else that was here. Because we're really busy right now. There's 3 farmers markets every week, plus Sunday services, plus Saturday open days, plus 1,000 tomato plants that need to be tied up right now. A lot of stuff is going on. And so that wasn't really clear to me in my head. How does this actually work? I just knew that we had to go, and we were being called to go. And I think the interesting thing was I started just asking, is this going to be okay? Is this right? Not just in my meditation, but the people here. And their response was amazing to me because I realized that everyone was ready to step up and to do this. And I can honestly say that for the whole time I was gone, I had no anxiety at all about the farm because I knew who was here and what was happening. And we would get reports like every day, every other day. We get these little reports coming from the farm, and it was so apparent that the energy was up here, that everybody, the opportunity that was for us to leave meant everybody else could rise and just do all the things that needed to be done. And that to me was just as amazing as what we were experiencing in California. It was that we had this whole spiritual family here that was committed to working on this in the spirit of brotherhood together. That is not something you can fake. I could get up here and give talks all day long about the truth. And when Jesus tells us that the heaven is found within us in spirit and in truth, we can sow all the seeds in spirit that we want, but at the end of the day, we have to live these things in our heart of hearts. We have to live the truth. That's what yoga is. It's the living of it. And it was amazing to me to be able to step away completely and to release this place and to see everyone else living the truth. It was a true miracle, actually. And the rest of this talk, Master goes on to talk about how we're supposed to live on this planet. And this is the era towards the end of his earthly incarnation when he was very adamant about the right way for people to live. And that was in brotherhood colonies. And you know what he said? That everyone would already live like this if it wasn't for one thing. If it wasn't for all of our desires. All the things we carry around with us and we think, I want, I need. All that ego identification. And he said in 1949 that there would be thousands of brotherhood colonies all over the planet. I don't know that any of us can testify that that's the reality outwardly right now. But I think that what we realize is that when we choose to live that reality inside of ourselves, we see that it really is everywhere all the time. Because it's the spirit of how we live. It's the consciousness of brotherhood. That we take care of each other. That we look after each other. That we live simply. He has this amazing line in here that he says over and over again. And you guys have heard the first part. It's that we need to live simply with high ideals. That's the first part. It's the dynamic balance of life on this planet. That we live simply and we do the little things. We grow our food. We make our medicine. We do the practical things that are required of us to be a human and meet our needs. The other half is that we do that with the spirit of self-realization. That we do these things with Mother Nature as a divine reality, not as a mundane thing, but as a divine reality. We wake up to that. And he says, I'm not preaching primitivism. I'm teaching you about your own freedom. That is an amazing thing. He says it 3 or 4 times in this. I'm not teaching you primitivism. I'm teaching you to be free. And so when we think about this spirit of simplicity, of brotherhood, we get to wake up to this reality that the less we do things for our little self, The more we forget that little self, the more we rise. We can accomplish so much together when we truly live for the Great Spirit in life and not for our little self. There's infinite opportunities for each one of us in our life as it is today to serve everyone, to love everyone, to feel that gratitude in our hearts all the time. And as we sat here this morning and I was watching people come in, this is when my tears are going to start coming. It's amazing when you feel that gratitude in your heart and your cup overflows and you realize God in each person and you see and you recognize the truth of that, not just as an idea, but as the tangible, living reality of life. That you are God, that I am God, and that all there is God everywhere. And when that becomes our consciousness, places like Ananda village and what's happening on Camano at this farm become normal. It becomes the natural way of life. And so I just want us to hold that understanding out there for the whole world to understand that this is where we're going. Wherever we're at right now is totally okay. We just need to understand the direction we're going is to see that God is the source, God is the vine, and that if we just cling to that vine, we can grow really long and strong, but don't let go of that trunk. Hang on to that trunk and that source of life. And we can do everything that God wills for us to do. And that's one more thing he says in here, is the reason we don't know our life's purpose, if we don't know our life's purpose, is because of those desires. And so let's sever those desires, give our lives to God, and awaken to that reality as the only thing that matters. Jai Guru. And I think we will have some music.